spirit of this revolution is not going away.
This is the Ron Paul Liberty Report with Ron Paul, Daniel McAdams, and Chris Rossini.
We are all ambassadors of the Ron Paul doctrine, and it's so simple. Just tell the truth.
An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army or any
Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning into the Liberty Report. With us today, we have Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, good to see you this morning.
Happy Monday. How are you this morning, Dr. Paul?
Good.
All
There's
right.
pieces in the world today, so are we going to be celebrating?
We should.
Or
Yeah.
should we just try to do analyze this and find out what's really going on?
Little
So
both.
I'm waiting to hear from you, Daniel. You tell me exactly what's happening over there. It is a mess, I'll tell you what. And there are some surprises, but there's some just old repetition of how these things are handled. So there's a call, pause in the war. And but you know, I guess it was on the beginning of the week. They said that by Friday they were going to announce immediately there was this peace. Then all of a sudden it was switched till Sunday or something. And they had to postpone it. And I hope maybe there's a kink in all this positive stuff. Well, I wished it were as positive as the ones who have designed it say it is, because I've become accustomed to being reluctant to overstate and say, boy, this is wonderful, and now we're moving in a world. We can erase all the mistakes of the Middle East. Back in the last 100 years, all the mistakes both sides have made. But I don't think that's there. But we have to give a little bit of hope, because it looks like maybe they'll quit shooting at each other. But it might be just a pragmatic thing. Maybe they're just running out of bullets, and maybe they want to save their bullets for a while longer. And at the same time, maybe there's a political component of that. Maybe we have to have peace for the campaign, for the election, and help the Republicans, win the re-election. But it might be that there was a concession that not only is there time to save the weapons or catch up on the weapons, they had to, get people to take a rest from this, and then I think that Trump probably had to concede a few things, but he is still, in his eyes, he is still the boss, and he has fooled a lot of people, but I was surprised about one thing that we might mention, and while we talk here today, was that the Israeli people themselves aren't, they're not having big parades, and they say, boy, this is really going to help us. There's going to be more likely peace. There's a lot of hesitation from the Israeli people. They're saying that this might not be as grand ending of this war as some people wish.
Yeah, well, the Israeli people don't want it to end. I mean, if you look at in the upper 80s, they want to take more of Lebanon. They want to take more of Gaza. So they're unhappy that there's any chance for peace, because they don't have a taste for it right now, unfortunately. But, it's been back and forth for a long time. Peace deal, no peace deal. I think someone counted 40 times that President Trump has said, we're on the verge of a deal, and then the next day we're going to wipe out their civilization. So maybe this is the 41st time. And maybe 41 times is a charm. I don't know how that old saying goes, but I think the main points that we have to think about is, will it hold? That's number one. And number two, what is in the agreement? And we don't know either of those two things. We see the Iranians talk about what's in it, and they're touting it to their people. Obviously, this is a good win for us. The White House is telling what they believe is in the agreement, or what they know is in the agreement, and they're touting it as a win for the U.S., as is understandable. But for the rest of us, it would be nice to have not the interpretation of what's in it, but to actually see each point that's in the memorandum of understanding. Now, this isn't a peace agreement. We're sort of using that word in an inappropriate way. It is a memorandum of understanding to open the door to a peace agreement. It's a pre-peace agreement. And as such, if it moves in the right direction, I think there is some opportunity to be slightly optimistic at this point, although we do have some serious potential time bombs in it that we'll talk about in a bit.
There'll be a lot of back and forth on the blame game, and right now you read about, well, it's all Iran's fault, all this, and then some people will say, no, we think it's all promoted by Netanyahu, and but a lot of people have been hurt that have been on the sidelines, or they might have been just weak allies of ours, and they got to the point where they got involved, and strategically, it was probably a wise thing for Iran to do. Just because you're not you didn't help declare the war, but you're supporting the war, I guess. So you're not going to be protected, and I think that has helped put some pressure, on Trump. But I think that the other pressure is. Trump is so politically motivated. He has to know that his numbers are down, and he can't ignore that, especially with election coming up. And he has to know there are millions of people in the world today that are having trouble, getting their gas tanks filled.
Yeah.
And the sentiment has changed. And maybe this is, once again, as you point out, this is not a permanent peace treaty. You can walk away and say it's all over. Let's have the parades. That's not where we are. And I think there's going to be a lot of back and forth that, especially after the announcement. And what really transpires, we don't know what will happen. But I think there will be some discouragements because I don't think they've touched on the real cause of this. And I know that Trump had to challenge Netanyahu a little bit, and maybe that will maybe calm him down. But right now, I think their unity and their efforts, I think it's going to be hard to just sort of eliminate them. I think the influence of Netanyahu in Israel is always going to remain very high, which means that the American people should say, it's okay, but we're not really going to go over there. And then they forget about trying to relate this to the fact that there's an oil shortage, and it's related to us financing this war. I don't think there's anybody saying that Iran actually was the literal starter of this war, although long-term history shows that Israel, Netanyahu types, their enemy is very clear-cut. They know what it is, even though I think they're misled on this, because I think that they put too much effort on it, realizing that this antagonism and fighting in all these wars, and maybe there'll be a day when the United States will realize that these aren't answers to our political problems. It's just go to war. We've had a few in the last 20, 30 years or more. It's almost a constant thing, especially since World War II.
Well, I think the thing to remember in this is that Trump really had no choice. Now, go to that first clip. This is from Zero Hedge. Of course, unfortunately, their headlines keep changing, but this is how they update things. So this is the new headline: Trump, ships starting to move through Strait of Hormuz. Now, he's needing to tell a good news story, understandably. He's claiming that the ships are starting to move, which could be the case. Now, J.D. Vance begins an optics roadshow to boost the investor confidence in the oil deal, and Iran offers a 60-day toll-free Hormuz transit as hundreds of ships await reopening. Now, Trump, for all of his bluster, I think there's still a Trump in there somewhere who understands this, and he's been told very clearly that we are running out of oil. We've drained the strategic reserves. We are looking at mid-July of some serious crisis hitting. If something doesn't happen soon, you're going to be in a disaster. And there's other things that are happening in Asia. There's unrest at gas prices increasing. Indonesia over the weekend had fuel riots because the gas prices rose 30% in a single day. And you're seeing that throughout Asia. The world unrest, the possibility of world recession or depression is increasing. So that pressure was on President Trump. He had to make some kind of a deal. And now he's trying to sell it as a win. Unfortunately for him, he listened to the neocons. He listened to Netanyahu. They said, hey, this will be a cakewalk. We'll go in there. It'll be just like Venezuela. You'll be the hero of the world. And they cajoled him, and he listened to them because, unfortunately, he's very susceptible to flattery. And so now the whole thing's gone in the tank because he listened to them. And hopefully he understands that he was listening to the wrong people. But nevertheless, he had to make this deal. He's making a deal. We don't know what's exactly in it, but we know both sides are getting some of what they want, and both sides are giving up some of the things that they'd rather not give up. That might be a good sign.
You know, they're doing this, like I say, that they need to refill the oil tanks. We need to soothe it over with the people, especially in the United States and elsewhere, because of elections, and people are annoyed by this. And the weapons industry, they don't want to run out of reasons to keep their manufacturing going on weapon building. And then there's the other one, which is the generalized thing. They don't really talk about it. And that is the payment is coming due. And you know, they talk about $40 trillion of debt. And there's interest rate payments. And that's the big argument financially now. Are interest rates going to go up? Well, there's a lot of interference, and there's a lot of praying, and they get by, and they can keep interest rates artificially low. But that is going to come due. And so if there is a period of peace, I can't be relaxed and say, boy, that's good. None of my grandkids are going to have to ever go over to the Middle East.
Yeah.
And that is, but the people of the United States are, I think they're so easily influenced for various emotional things, and say, and they like strength. We all do. I'd like to see a strong America, but I think our definition of a strong America might be based around limited government and more freedom and more prosperity. And that's quite a bit different. That's the great America I want. But no, they think the only great America, so many people, and this has been traditional with many countries, is military strength.
Yeah.
You know, and that has been around for thousands of years.
Well, you know, J.D. Vance's star has faded since this war started. I think that's one of the most important things that we've seen. He was, you know, said to be a shoo-in for the nomination next time in 27, 28. I think that's certainly no longer the case. And so I think Vance has been given the opportunity now to sell this deal and maybe try to repair a little bit of his image. So if you go to that next clip, he made the rounds on the shows over the weekend, and this is what the hedge write-up says. Not even 24 hours after President Trump declared a peace deal with Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and just 30 minutes before New York futures opened Sunday evening, important, the administration already had Vice President J.D. Vance beginning a media roadshow to calm investor nerves and boost confidence. Now, we know that the president has been doing his best to manipulate the markets. You might call it influence the markets to the point where, you know, it's starting to become impossible. I do have a couple of video clips of J.D. Vance on a couple of shows just to give you an idea how he's handling it. Let's watch those in succession. You might want to grab that earpiece, Dr. Paul. Let's listen to in succession the two short. These are relatively short.
Of this deal.
Well, we already signed the deal digitally yesterday, and there's been no money released, and that won't change, George. Again, this is a performance-based thing. If we see the Iranians making, for example, taking action to eliminate their stockpile of enriched material, then yes, sanctions relief will follow. If we see the Iranians taking action to allow the kind of verification regime that we need to see to know that they're not going to build a nuclear weapon, yes, sanctions relief will follow.
Of this deal.
We could pause that one for a second. Let's go to that next one and listen to it, and we'll have a comment. Let's go to that second one and listen to the second. Yeah, let's rewind it for a second. If we can put that on the screen. There we go.
Walk through some of this. The Iranians are saying that they're going to have access to a $300 billion reconstruction fund. True or false?
Well, and that's the sort of thing they could have access to, funded by the Gulf Coast Coalition, so long as they honor their end of the obligation. I think that one of the things you're going to see, Ed, and people have to be skeptical of this, is that the hardliners in the Iranian system will overemphasize the benefits that Iran gets while underemphasizing all the things that they have to concede and all the things they have to provide in order to get these benefits. So we absolutely are open to the Gulf Coast countries investing in the reconstruction of Iran, but only if Iran ends their nuclear program, ends their enriched stockpile of material, and is really open to an inspections and enforcement regime that gives the American people confidence they're never going to have a nuclear weapon. So I think the dance you're going to see, Ed, which is going to be
now none of this, of course, was part of the MOU. This is what the 60-day negotiation is for. So he's way out ahead of himself. But we understand what he's trying to do, Dr. Paul. He is trying to assuage the American people into thinking that Trump didn't give up more than he did, which is significant. So the problem is both sides have different takes on what this MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, is all about. So we will have to see what happens.
I want to quote one sentence from the article that went over this subject from Zero Hedge. And here it is. In an interview with the Financial Times, Trump stated, quote, "I call the shots. I call all the shots. He, Netanyahu, doesn't call the shots." However, Netanyahu ordered a strike on Iran just hours after Trump's comments. Iran reported by striking targets if needed. That to me isn't a mixed bag. Is there going to be a division? Do they have a disagreement? And I keep thinking that if a person has talent or strength or anything, that when they have to brag about it and say, I'm the smartest man in the world, I think it comes from insecurity. That doesn't, because if somebody comes up and says, I'm the smartest man and the richest man in the world, I don't think that proves a thing.
Yeah.
And I think that this shows the little bit of insecurity about that, and he has to build up his image or continue to build up his image, but there seems to be some cracks there. I don't know what will develop. If there was this attitude, he would be becoming annoyed because Netanyahu didn't do exactly what he was told to do. That we've talked about this a lot, and the truth is, I don't know who's the boss, and maybe it's an outside source completely. Maybe it's the manufacturers. Maybe there's a clique out there that makes a lot of money on that. Maybe they call the shots.
Yeah, well, the thing is, we don't know exactly what's in the deal. Again, I'm saying it for the third time, but it's important because speculation can be very frustrating. But one of the things you might say is you can judge it by its opponents and proponents. Now, Drudge, as we know, there's a lot of good things about his page because especially if we're short some topics, we can hopefully get some ideas. But Drudge obviously has always been basically a neocon, and so we know that. And so we can judge by Drudge. If you go to that next clip, now here's his take on it right now. Trump makes Iran great again. War for nothing. So he's obviously pushing him. The neocons are pushing him. They're frustrated. Now, Ben-Gvir, one of the most extreme politicians in Israel, if you go to the next one, he's openly mocking the deal. He says Israeli officials inciting violence in Lebanon and Iran. Ben-Gvir. And about the state of Israel, we must continue to demolish the houses in southern Lebanon. We must continue to drive the residents of South Lebanon away. Smotrich, another extremist. Israel will continue to use all the tools at its disposal to overthrow this murderous Ayatollah regime in Iran and prevent his terrorist regime from becoming a nuclear threshold state. So you see the two extremists in Israel among many, but two of the most outspoken ones saying, we don't give a darn about this deal. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. But we do know, at least from the Memorandum of Understanding, that Israel is supposed to be actually leaving Lebanon, and they do have a ceasefire. So we'll see if the U.S. is willing to support that. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, someone that we've grown to have a lot of respect for, not exactly a non-interventionist, but I think a good realist, is Joe Kent. And Joe Kent's reaction to the deal, I think, was very positive. I think it's something we could absolutely agree with if you put that next one on. Here's what Joe Kent said. He said, we can strengthen our chances of this deal holding by cutting all military and intel assistance to Israel. They took every opportunity to tank this deal and will likely do so again unless we take action. We should also quietly get our troops out of the bases in the Gulf that can be reached by Iran. This ensures Iranian hardliners can't strike us to drag us back into the fight. Take away every factor that we can control that could force us back into the war on Israel or Iran's terms. Set all conditions that we can control in our favor. I think a very solid position to take. I do think that this distinction between the hardliners and the moderates, to me, it strikes me as Kremlinology. I think it's a sort of a mystical thing. I don't think it actually exists, and I think it's a mistake for people to put too much into that. Nevertheless, it's still a solid position, I think, to take.
You know, I think this little quote I'm going to quote, I think it came from Larry Johnson's article. He says, meanwhile, the deal gives just 60 days, which is a little bit, that'd be a lot of pressure in this day and age, and dealing with a problem that big over there. 60 days to resolve what to do about the Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium and its atomic program. That took years to resolve in Tehran in 2015, nuclear deal with the world powers. The U.S. President Donald Trump unilaterally withdrew America from that accord in his first term, setting the stage for the tensions that culminated in war. And I think that's a true statement. I mean, we did leave it. So, you know, it's just sort of bugs me, I guess. Wars are started it's started by bad policy, bad motivations, or whatever, or ignorance. Who knows what? But it just bugs me that they can start these wars, and if you list up all the costs of this war, how many people died and how much property was damaged, and then they go back, we have an agreement. It might not work, but we're the heroes now. We just stopped the war, and there'll be a little bit of that too. But I think maybe the evidence will be out there. You know, we admit we don't have all the information we need right now, but it'll creep by. We'll know more about it, and who knows what the predictions will be. Whether this will be really an opening that might last for a long time. Who knows? But all I know is which side we're on. We want less peace, less war, more peace, and people cooperating and not having special interest dealing. The policy because they want to make a couple more bucks. Yeah,
that's it exactly. Well, let's end on a slightly lighter note, I suppose. There's something else over the weekend. I mean, the juxtaposition of a temporary peace deal in Iran and this next picture. If you put it up, I don't even know what to say, Dr. Paul. A cage match on the White House lawn. UFC fighters on the lawn. A lot of people there. Go to the next one. Here's what it looked like with a flyover during the national anthem in front of the White House. You can't make this up, Dr. Paul. What is your impression of a cage fight on the White House lawn?
Well, it's disgusting to me. It's silly and unbelievable. But I think there's some deep symbolism here too, because we live with violence, and the people. And I think when we were talking about it, you said you think that people will love it.
Yeah. I think his base will love it.
Yeah. That's the whole thing. And of course, there was a time in my life where boxing was more like a sport. But as I knew more about medicine, I came around to the agreement. Now a lot of our people maybe listening right now say, oh, you can't be against boxing. Well, I think the goal of boxing is to give a guy, a concussion, to beat his brains out, which sometimes it kills him and sometimes it's lasting injury. So I'm very sensitive about that. So he now comes up and having this. It's almost symbolic of a violent culture that we hear. Yeah. And I thought thought for sure they wouldn't be doing it. And I was trying to get some details, and since you're the expert, I did, do they have to wear boxing gloves for this?
I don't think so. I'm not an expert either. But
No, this is real cage fighting. It's almost like put people in a cage like an animal.
Yeah.
Go to it. See who gets killed first.
yeah.
Well, I guess I'm being too facetious, but I'd much rather see peaceful associations. There's no reason we can't do that, because I still believe there's more people wishing for peace and prosperity and understanding that is much better, and that we don't need all these wars to pretend that we have to take care of the people, and it's not very complicated.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is a far cry from President Reagan, who, despite his faults, he would never take his jacket off, famously, when he was in the Oval Office, because he wanted to respect the office. And then a little while later, he was followed by Clinton, who did things in the Oval Office that we're not going to talk about on the show. And then, of course, we had Obama. We had the other bad ones too. Obama making his kill lists in the Oval Office, et cetera, et cetera. But with Reagan, you remember the famous saying, you brought it up on the show, let Reagan be Reagan. Despite the fact that this is not to my particular taste, I think if only we had let Trump be Trump, and he would hold cage matches and anything, maybe NASCAR going around the White House, anything like that, instead of all of these wars, even though it's not to our taste, we would be better off right now.
Yeah, so you're voting for dumb entertainment.
Dumb entertainment. Well,
Except the people love it.
people do love it. Go to that next clip, actually the final clip. Now, Dr. Paul, I do not recommend this movie for you. There's a lot of bad language in it. But Idiocracy is a parody of how our culture has been dumbed down. It came out quite a few years ago. It was shocking when it came out, and now it almost looks like a documentary. This is a depiction of the president here, Dr. Paul, President Camacho, making his State of the Union address, and he does arrive with an automatic weapon to silence the members of Congress who are disagreeing with him. We're not quite there yet, but this doesn't look as radical as it was when it came out a decade or so ago.
Well, there probably will be some pictures about the violence of what cage fighting is all about, and we could have a slogan: "This is what it comes to. This is what it's come to," and we're really to celebrate 250 years of supposedly, the Grand Republic and maximum amount of freedom, and we still are, compared to a lot of other places. Yeah. I'm still picking here, but I still don't like the trend, and the trend's been going in the wrong direction for a long time.
Absolutely. Well,
so
I'll just close out and thank everyone for watching the show, and we hope that you'll join us again, and I'll turn it over to you, Dr.
Very good. And I want to thank all our viewers for tuning in today to watch our show. And one piece of advice I give and one request: please do whatever you can to spread the message. I've always argued that if all of a sudden it dawns on you that personal liberty is easily understood, but if you understand it well, you should have a little bit of compulsion to do what you can to spread that message, because we cannot depend on mainstream media or the politicians running our country. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.
Thanks for watching the Ron Paul Liberty Report. Like and subscribe to help spread the message. And until next time, live free.
This country